What if I told you the best way to catch more fish is to stop fishing? Sounds crazy, right? We've all been taught that persistence is key, that you have to grind it out, stay put, and wait for that bite. But today, we're going to tear that old idea apart. We're going to explore a radical concept, the idea that leaving your best spot for an hour and then coming back is a more powerful tactic than staying there all day. I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll understand the one critical mistake that turns a hot bite into a dead zone, and it has everything to do with your stubbornness. So, let me ask you this right now. Have you ever stubbornly stayed in one spot for hours, absolutely convinced the fish had to be there? Tell me about it in the comments. I want to hear your stories. This whole debate comes down to a core belief in fishing culture. From the time we were kids, we were told, patience is a virtue. Our grandfathers and fathers taught us to find a good spot and work it. The image of a dedicated angler is one of stoic persistence, braving the elements, making thousands of casts until the fish finally gives in. Leaving a spot, especially one that was just producing, feels like admitting defeat. It feels like you're giving up. This mindset is so deeply ingrained that we rarely question it. We assume that if we just keep casting, try one more lure, or change the color for the 10th time, we can force a bite. But this grinder mentality ignores a fundamental truth about the fish we're trying to catch, and it's probably costing you more fish than you realize. Let's paint a picture you know all too well. It's early morning, the fog is just lifting off the water. You make your first cast to a perfect-looking point, and bam, fish on. You land it, release it, and cast again. Another one. For about 30 minutes, it's non-stop action. You're feeling like a pro, thinking you've found the mother lode. You're convinced you're going to limit out right here in this one magical spot. This is the moment every angler lives for, the reason we get up at 4 in the morning. The action is fast and furious, and you think it's going to last forever. You're in the zone, everything is working perfectly, and the fish are practically jumping into the boat. Life is good, and your confidence is through the roof. And then, just as quickly as it started, it stops. It's like someone flipped a switch. The water goes completely dead. Your casts land with a silent splash, and the retrieve feels empty. You wait. You make another cast, then another. 10 minutes go by. 20 minutes. Nothing. Not a single tap, not a bump, not a follow. The spot that was electric just moments ago is now a ghost town. The silence is deafening, and that high you were on starts to crash. You start to doubt yourself. Was it a fluke? Did the school of fish move on? The frustration begins to set in as you stare at the lifeless water, replaying those first few catches in your mind. Now, the grinder mindset kicks in. This is the default setting for 90% of anglers out there. You tell yourself, they have to be here. They didn't just vanish. Your brain refuses to accept that the bite is over. So, what do? You double down. You decide you're not leaving. You're going to figure them out. This is where stubbornness takes over from strategy. You plant your feet or anchor the boat and commit to the grind. You see it as a challenge, a test of your skill and will. Leaving now would feel like weakness. So you stay, determined to crack the code, convinced that sheer effort will bring the bite back to life. The tackle box opens. First, you switch to a different color of the same lure that was working. No bites. Okay, time for a completely different presentation. You tie on a jig, then a crankbait. Then a soft plastic rigged 3 different ways. You go from top water to bottom bouncing. You try fast retrieves, slow retrieves, and dead sticking it. An hour goes by, and all you've accomplished is retying a dozen knots and making your boat deck look like a tackle shop exploded. You're working harder than ever, casting relentlessly, but the result is the same: absolute silence. The more you try, the more futile it feels, and the more that initial morning success feels like a distant memory. Let's pause and talk about the psychology of this. Why do we do it? Because in almost every other aspect of our lives, more effort usually leads to better results. If you work harder at your job, you get a promotion. If you put more hours in at the gym, you get stronger. We are conditioned to believe that grinding is honorable and productive. So when the bite stops, our instinct tells us to work harder at fishing. We equate constant casting with being a good, dedicated angler. Standing still or leaving feels lazy and counterproductive. We're afraid that the second we leave, the fish will start biting again, and we'll miss it. It's a powerful mental trap. Now, let's introduce the alternative, the move that feels wrong but is often so right, the strategic retreat. Instead of doubling down, you decide to pull up the trolling motor or the anchor and just leave. That's right, you abandon the spot that was a goldmine just an hour ago. You're not giving up on it forever, you're just giving it a break. You make a mental note of the spot and decide to come back in about an hour. It goes against every grind-it-out instinct you have. It feels like you're surrendering. But what you're actually doing is switching from a game of force to a game of finesse. You're starting to fish with your brain, not just your muscles. So, what is actually happening during that hour you're away? The most important thing is that you are removing angler pressure. This is a concept that many weekend fishermen underestimate. Your presence has a much bigger impact than you think. Every cast you make creates ripples and a splash. Your trolling motor whirs. Your boat casts a large predatory shadow over the water. You might be dropping things on the deck. All these little disturbances add up. To the fish, especially in clear or calm water, your presence is like having a construction site operating in their living room. They might not spook and flee the area entirely, but they will definitely become wary and cautious. Think about it from the fish's perspective. It's a world of eat or be eaten. Their survival depends on being hyper-aware of their surroundings. A constant barrage of strange objects falling from the sky, your lures, and the persistent hum and shadow of your boat puts them on high alert. You've essentially trained them that this specific area is currently dangerous. After you catch one or two of their buddies, the rest of the school gets the message loud and clear. Something is wrong here. This isn't a natural feeding opportunity, it's an ambush. And their instinct for self-preservation kicks in, overriding their instinct to feed. You've educated them. Fish aren't dumb, especially the older, bigger ones that you really want to catch. They've survived for years by being smart and cautious. They've seen countless lures. They know what a boat shadow looks like. They can feel the vibrations of a trolling motor through the water. When you pressure a spot heavily, these are the first fish to shut down. They won't bite. They'll either move to deeper cover or just suspend and wait for the threat to pass. The smaller, more aggressive fish might bite at first, but once the big, dominant fish in the area go on lockdown, the whole mood of the spot changes. You're left casting at fish that are too scared or too smart to bite. When they get like this, we call it lockjaw. They simply stop feeding. It doesn't matter what you throw at them. You could drop a live, wriggling nightcrawler right on their nose, and they'll ignore it. They are in a defensive, non-feeding posture. This is the wall you hit when you grind it out. You're essentially trying to convince a terrified animal to eat while it thinks a predator is watching it. It's a losing battle. No amount of lure changes or fancy retrieves can overcome that basic survival instinct. You are no longer seen as a source of food, you are seen as a source of danger. And that's a problem that no tackle box can solve. So, when you physically leave the area, you are hitting a giant reset button on the entire situation. The most obvious thing is that the noise stops, the casting stops, the boat shadow is gone. You are completely removing the source of the pressure. You are taking the predator out of their living room. This is the single most effective thing you can do when a bite dies from pressure. It's not about finding a magic lure. It's about changing the environmental conditions back to normal for the fish. You're allowing the entire underwater ecosystem in that small area to forget you were ever there in the first place. Over the course of that hour, the spot returns to its natural state. The fish that were hunkered down in cover, wary and stressed, slowly start to feel safe again. Their world goes from being a chaotic, dangerous place back to being calm and normal. The vibrations are gone, the shadows are gone, the strange plunging objects are gone. Their short-term memory of the danger begins to fade. They start to relax. This is a crucial part of the process. You are allowing time to erase the negative conditioning you just spent an hour creating. The spot is healing itself from the pressure you applied. Let's visualize what you're doing during this time. You've left the hot spot. Maybe you motor over to a completely different part of the lake to explore a new shoreline. Or perhaps you just drift 100 yards away and fish a less promising-looking weed bed. You could even just kick back, have a sandwich, and enjoy the scenery. The key is to be completely gone from that primary spot. Out of sight, out of sound. This requires discipline. Every fiber of your being will be telling you to go back and check on it. You have to fight that urge. You have to trust the process and let the spot rest and recover. That 1 hour can feel like an eternity, especially when you're not catching anything in your secondary spots. This is where patience truly comes into play. It's not the patience to sit in one spot for 3 hours getting no bites. It's the patience to stick to your game plan, to let the spot rest for the full 60 minutes. During this time, something magical is happening back at that spot. The smaller bait fish, which were also spooked by your presence, start to venture out again. The natural rhythm of the area returns. The fish see this and their confidence grows. They see normal activity, which signals to them that the danger has passed. This is a key point. The confidence of the predator fish, like bass or walleye, is directly linked to the behavior of the bait fish. When the bait is skittish and hiding, the big fish are wary. When the bait is swimming around freely and acting normal, it tells the predator fish that it's safe to come out and hunt again. By leaving, you're not just letting the game fish calm down, you're letting their entire food source tell them that the coast is clear. You've allowed the dinner bell to ring naturally, without you forcing it. This is a far more powerful trigger than any lure you could possibly throw. So the hour is up. It's time to go back. But how you return is just as important as the act of leaving. You don't roar back in with the main motor at full throttle. You shut it down a long way off and use your trolling motor on a low setting to make a wide, quiet approach. You don't bang things around in the boat. You approach the spot as if you are discovering it for the first time. You are now a stealthy hunter, not a noisy intruder. You are treating it like a brand new, fresh spot, because from the fish's perspective, that's exactly what it is. The slate has been wiped clean. You position your boat perfectly, maybe a little farther away than you were before. You take a moment, watch the water, and then you make your first cast. It's a long, quiet cast that lands softly. You're not just casting anywhere. You're casting to the prime ambush point within the spot. You're presenting your lure to fish that are now relaxed, confident, and likely in a feeding mood again because their environment has been stable for the last hour. You're no longer fighting their fear. You're appealing directly to their hunger. Everything is different now. The whole dynamic has been reset in your favor. And then it happens. Thump. Fish on. You land it, and it feels incredible. But you notice something interesting. The fish you're catching now seem to be, on average, a little bit bigger than the ones you caught in that first flurry. Why is that? It's because the smaller, more aggressive teenager fish are often the first to bite in the morning. But after the spot rests, the bigger, more cautious bully of the area has had time to calm down, regain its confidence, and re-establish its dominance over the prime feeding location. You're now catching the boss, not just his hyperactive kids. This happens because the dominant fish are often the most sensitive to pressure. They didn't get big by being reckless. When you first arrived, they were likely the first to sense danger and shut down. By leaving and returning quietly, you're giving yourself a second chance to trick that wise old fish. You're presenting a lure to a dominant predator that now believes it's safe. It's no longer thinking about survival. It's thinking about ambushing the next easy meal that comes by. And your lure just happens to be that meal. You've outsmarted the smartest fish in the spot. Ultimately, this isn't just some random fishing theory. It's based on a fundamental understanding of animal behavior. Think about deer hunting. You don't walk to your tree stand, slamming doors and snapping twigs, and expect a buck to walk out 5 minutes later. You get there early, you're quiet, and you let the woods settle down around you for an hour or more. You're letting the environment return to normal. Fishing is exactly the same. We just forget it because we can't see the animals we're hunting. Applying the strategic retreat is simply applying the principles of good hunting to your fishing. So, let's wrap this up. We've talked about the classic scenario of a bite dying and the instinct to grind it out. But we've learned that this constant pressure can be the very reason the fish stopped biting. The most powerful tool in your arsenal might not be a new lure, but the discipline to leave the spot alone. By removing the pressure, you allow the spot to reset. The fish calm down, their confidence returns, and they go back into feeding mode. When you return an hour later, you're essentially fishing a fresh spot, often with a chance at catching the bigger, smarter fish you spooked earlier. The real aha moment here is redefining what patience means in fishing. It's not about the patience to endure hours of no bites. It's about the strategic patience to make the smart move, even if that move is to walk away for a while. This single shift can change your entire approach from one of brute force to one of clever strategy. Thank you so much for watching. If this gave you something to think about, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more content that challenges the way we think about fishing. Now, for the final question. What's the longest you've ever stubbornly waited out a dead bite? And after watching this, will you try the 1 hour away tactic on your next trip? I want to hear all about it in the comments below.